You just got the email. Friday afternoon, 3 p.m. Your manager wants to see you. And you know what this is about. You've been waiting for it. Your annual review. The raise conversation. You walk into the office. She's smiling. You've been doing great work. The company values you. And they're giving you a 12% raise. From $58,000 to $65,000. $7,000 more a year. That's $583 extra every month. You shake hands, you say thank you. You walk back to your desk feeling like you just won something. And for about a week, you feel wealthier. You feel successful. You feel like you're finally getting ahead. You start thinking about what you can do with that extra $583. Maybe you can finally save more. Maybe you can pay off debt faster. Maybe you can build that emergency fund you've been putting off. But here's what actually happens. 6 months later, you're checking your bank account, and you've got about the same amount you had before the raise. Maybe $200 more in checking. Your savings barely moved, and you're thinking, where did it go? You're making $7,000 more a year. You should feel different. You should have more, but you don't. And there's this uncomfortable realization. The raise disappeared. All of it. You're making more money, and you feel exactly the same financially as you did before. My name's Peter, and if you've ever gotten a raise that should have changed everything, but somehow changed nothing, and you want to understand where that money actually goes and why making more never seems to help, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Because lifestyle inflation isn't just about spending more. It's about how your brain resets your financial baseline every time your income increases. So let's start with what actually happens to a $7,000 raise when you track where every dollar goes. You're making $58,000. After taxes, you take home about $3,600 monthly. Then you get the raise to $65,000. Sounds like you should be taking home $4,050 now, an extra $450 a month. But here's what actually happens. First, taxes. That raise puts you in a slightly higher bracket in some cases, and even if it doesn't, marginal tax rates mean you're paying about 30% on the additional income. So that $7,000 raise becomes about $4,900 after tax. You're really seeing an extra $408 a month, not $583. Already, the number is smaller than it felt, but $408 is still significant. That should make a difference. Month 1 after the raise, you feel wealthier. You've got this extra money. You treat yourself to a nicer dinner. You buy those shoes you've been wanting. You're not going crazy, just loosening up a bit. You spend about $180 of that first month's raise on things you wouldn't have bought before. You're down to $228. Month 2, your lease is up. You've been living in a fine apartment for $1,400, but there's a nicer place you've had your eye on. $1,650. It's in a better neighborhood, newer building, better amenities, and now that you're making more, you can afford it. You move. That $408 raise just became $158 after the rent increase. Month 3, you're shopping for groceries, and you realize you don't have to buy the store brand anymore. You can get the organic stuff, the nicer cuts of meat, the name brands. Your grocery bill goes from $320 to $410. That $158 becomes $68. Month 4, you're thinking about your car. It's fine, runs okay, but it's 7 years old, and you're making $65,000 now. You can afford a nicer car. You trade it in. Your payment goes from $0, it was paid off, to $385. You just went negative. That $68 became negative $317. Month 5, to afford the car, you start cutting back elsewhere. You cancel a subscription or two, you go out less. You tighten up. You get back to about negative $150. Month 6, you check your bank account. You're making $65,000. You should be accumulating money, but you're not. You've got about the same amount you had 6 months ago. The raise is completely gone, absorbed into a slightly upgraded lifestyle that now feels normal. And here's what's particularly brutal. You can't easily undo this. The nicer apartment is locked in for a year. The car payment is locked in for 6 years. The higher grocery standards feel normal now. Going back to store brand feels like a downgrade, not a baseline.
You're making $7,000 more, and you're no more financially secure than you were before. You just have slightly nicer stuff and proportionally higher expenses.
Most people think when they get a raise, they should save it or use it to get ahead financially, and they genuinely intend to. The raise feels like found money, like an opportunity to finally build wealth. That's not what happens. That's the trap. Here's what actually happens psychologically when your income increases. Your brain doesn't register absolute income. It registers relative income and relative lifestyle. So when you get a raise, you don't think, I now make $65,000. You think, I make $7,000 more than I used to make. And that $7,000 more feels like permission. Permission to upgrade, permission to spend more, permission to live at a level that matches your new income. And the entire consumer economy is calibrated to capture that permission. Apartment complexes know what people at $65,000 can afford. Car dealerships know, grocery stores know, restaurants know, subscription services know. So you get the raise and immediately you're shown a lifestyle that matches your new income, and it feels reasonable. Everyone at your income level lives in apartments like this, drives cars like this, shops at stores like this. You're not being extravagant, you're just living at the appropriate level for someone making $65,000. But that appropriate level costs $65,000, so you're right back where you started. Income equals expenses. No accumulation, same financial stress, just at a higher income bracket. This is called lifestyle inflation. And it's not just about spending more, it's about how your expectations and standards automatically rise to meet your income. There's a psychological concept that explains this perfectly. It's called hedonic adaptation. Your brain adapts to new circumstances and treats them as the new normal. You get the raise to $65,000. For about 2 weeks, you feel wealthier, you feel successful, you feel like you're making progress. Then your brain adapts. The $65,000 becomes your new baseline. It stops feeling like more money and starts feeling like your normal money. And once it's your baseline, the upgrades you made with that raise, the nicer apartment, the better car, the higher quality groceries, they stop feeling like upgrades. They start feeling like your normal life, the baseline. And here's where it gets insidious. Once your brain has adapted to the new baseline, you need more to feel that same sense of progress or success. So you start thinking, if I could just get to $75,000, then I'd be comfortable, then I'd have margin, then I'd feel secure. But the same pattern repeats. You get to $75,000, you upgrade your lifestyle to match, you adapt, and you're right back to feeling the same financial pressure you felt at $58,000 and $65,000. Your brain doesn't register absolute wealth, it registers change. So no matter how much you make, if your spending rises to meet it, you never feel wealthy. You're always chasing the feeling of enough that stays perpetually out of reach. And this is why people making $120,000 feel just as financially stressed as people making $50,000. Different income levels, different expense structures, identical anxiety. Because the gap between income and spending is proportionally the same. Let's look at what lifestyle inflation actually costs you over a typical career trajectory. You start at $52,000 at age 26. Every few years, you get raises. By 35, you're at $68,000. By 42, $82,000. By 50, $95,000. Each time you get a raise, you upgrade your lifestyle proportionally. Better apartment, nicer car, higher quality, everything. Your spending rises in lockstep with your income. At $52,000, you save about 4% of your income, $2,080 annually. At $68,000, you save about 4% of your income, $2,720 annually. At $82,000, you save about 4% of your income, $3,280 annually. At $95,000, you save about 4% of your income, $3,800 annually. Over 24 years, you earn $1,680,000 total. You save $70,000. That's 4.2% of your total earnings. You made $1.68 million and accumulated $70,000. Now here's the alternative. Someone who gets the same raises but doesn't inflate their lifestyle. They keep living like they make $58,000, even as they make $68,000, $82,000, $95,000. At $52,000, they save 4%. At $68,000, they save 21%. At $82,000, they save 29%. At $95,000, they save 39%. Over the same 24 years with the same income, they save $312,000. At 7% returns, that becomes about $485,000. Same career, same raises. One person has $70,000 saved, the other has $485,000 invested. The difference is $415,000 in net worth, all because one person upgraded their lifestyle with every raise and the other didn't.
You're lying in bed, Wednesday night, you're thinking about money again. You're making $68,000. 2 years ago, you were making $58,000. You got a 17% raise over 2 years. That should have been life-changing. That should have given you breathing room. But you're doing the same mental math you were doing at $58,000, wondering if you can afford that expense, wondering if your paycheck will cover everything, wondering when you'll finally feel financially comfortable. And that tightness in your chest, it's the realization that the number doesn't matter. You felt this way at $52,000. You felt this way at $58,000. You feel this way at $68,000. You'll probably feel this way at $80,000, because every time your income goes up, your life upgrades to match, and you end up in the same position, barely getting by, just at a higher income level. So here's how people who actually build wealth think about raises. They don't see raises as permission to upgrade. They see raises as opportunities to widen the gap between income and expenses. When they get a raise from $58,000 to $65,000, here's what happens in their head. It's not, what can I afford to upgrade? It's, how much of this can I make invisible to my lifestyle? They take that $408 monthly increase and they automate $350 of it straight to investments before they even see it in their checking account. They make the raise invisible. Their lifestyle stays exactly the same as it was at $58,000. They're living on $58,000 while making $65,000. And they keep doing this with every raise. At $68,000, they live like they make $58,000. At $75,000, they live like they make $58,000. At $85,000, they live like they make $58,000. And here's what that does. After 5 years of raises that they don't spend, they're making $75,000 but living on $58,000. The $17,000 annual gap is going to investments. Over 5 years, that's $85,000 invested, growing to about $98,000 with returns. Meanwhile, the person who upgraded their lifestyle with every raise is making $75,000, living on $75,000, and has $8,400 in savings. Same raises, same career path. One has $98,000 invested, the other has $8,400 saved. The only difference is that one person made their raises invisible to their spending, and the other upgraded their lifestyle to match every increase. And here's the key. The person with $98,000 invested isn't living in poverty. They're living in the same apartment they had at $58,000, driving the same reliable car, shopping at the same stores, living a perfectly comfortable life. They're just not living at the maximum level their income technically allows. They're living at maybe 75% of their income capacity, and that 25% gap is accumulating wealth faster than most people can imagine. The person spending 100% of their income, they're going to work until 67 and hope their 401k is enough, because they upgraded every time they got a raise and accumulated nothing. Now, let me be very clear about something. There are situations where upgrading makes sense. If you're living in an unsafe neighborhood and you get a raise that lets you move somewhere safe, that's worth it. If your car is unreliable and stranding you, upgrading is reasonable. But most lifestyle inflation isn't about safety or necessity. It's about comfort and status. It's about feeling like you should live at a certain level because you make a certain amount. And here's what's particularly insidious about this. It's invisible to you as it's happening. You don't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to inflate my lifestyle and sabotage my financial future. It happens gradually. A decision here, an upgrade there. Each one feels reasonable in isolation, but collectively, over years, those reasonable decisions result in a life where you're making $35,000 more than you were a decade ago, and you're no more financially secure. You just have nicer stuff and proportionally higher expenses. The data backs this up. The median American making $50,000 has about $4,200 in savings. The median American making $75,000 has about $7,100 in savings. The median American making $100,000 has about $11,000 in savings. The savings rate barely changes as income increases because spending increases proportionally. People making $100,000 are living paycheck to paycheck, just like people making $50,000. Different numbers, same fragility. So here's the thing about lifestyle inflation. It's not about individual weakness or poor discipline. It's a systematic response to income increases that almost everyone experiences unless they consciously choose to resist it. And resisting it requires seeing raises as opportunities to build freedom instead of permission to spend. It requires keeping your lifestyle constant even as your income grows. It requires being okay with living below your means permanently, not just until you can afford to upgrade. You can get every raise and upgrade your lifestyle and stay financially stressed at every income level. Or you can get raises and keep your lifestyle stable and build wealth that eventually gives you actual security. Most people choose the upgrades. The ones who build wealth choose the gap. If you want to see exactly how this inflation mentality tricks you into replacing perfectly good things and how the system is designed to lose you $220,000 replacing things that still work, click the video on your screen right now. Stop optimizing for the upgrade and start optimizing for your freedom. I'll see you there.